Hello, 7th graders, and those of you joining me today. So we're just going to go over the homework from yesterday. Hopefully it wasn't too hard because it's just doing a little bit of rational numbers with a little bit of just, I don't know what I'm trying to think of, just simple operations, right? So nothing too bad, too hard for this section here. Again, this is going to be review, and this review is for your end of the year test that you're going to have. Yay! Some of you probably didn't know that you were getting end of the year tests. Y'all probably all didn't know, but they're coming. All right, so we want to make sure that we are reviewing so that way we can understand and do well on these end of the year tests, which will have consideration for promotion. Okay, so let's just get started. Number 1. Mrs. Murray drew a Venn diagram on the board as shown. She asked her students to think of a number that would go in the integer circle in the diagram, but not in the whole number circle. What number could it be? Okay, so if it's an integer, remember integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So if I don't want it in the whole numbers, which is your positive plus 0, then I need a negative number, and the only negative number here is a. So -1 is an integer. Let's see here. Is this okay? Going on to number 2. The table shows the temperature of a city recorded on 4 consecutive days. What was the temperature on December 5th? Okay, so let's see here. So it starts at 4 degrees and then it drops. So that's a subtraction of 1.5 and you get 2.5. Then it dropped again, 3.5, so you have -1. And then it rises 2.5. So a rise means to add, right? So I have -1 plus 2.5. Okay, so what's the rule here? Well, the signs are different, so I have to subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. So when I subtract, I get 1.5, and that's a positive. So the answer here is H. Number 3. A scuba diver was rising back to the surface after taking photos underwater. At 2:50 p.m., he was at an elevation of -15 3/10 feet. At 2:55 p.m., so that's a 5-minute difference, the diver's depth was -3 7/10 feet. By how many feet did the diver's position change from 250 to 255? So we want to know how much did he go up, right? Because if he starts at, so if here is -15.3, and he's at -3 7/10, well, he's actually rising, and that's what it says, right? He's rising. All right, so the way to do this is to say, okay, I'm going to do -3 7/10 minus -15 3/10. Okay, well, that's going to be a positive there. The signs are different. We need to subtract. Let's see here. And so that's going to be 11 and 16, or 11 and 6/10. All right, and because he's going up, it's a positive. The answer there is C. Number 4. Use the Venn diagram to answer the question, which of the following does not belong in the integer circle? Okay. So remember, if it's a counting number, if it's a whole number, it's also an integer because we go from the inside out. All right, so let's look at -2.5. -2.5 is a rational number. It is not an integer because you cannot have fractions or decimals in the integers. All right, so the answer here is F. Now, if you're talking about the square root of 16, that's just 4. All right, so that's 4 times 4 is 16. If you didn't know that, you really should have known that you can't have decimal and fractions in the integers. So that's why the answer is F. It doesn't belong. Number 5. Oops. The table shows monthly balances in Bill's bank account for 4 months. His account balance in August was $6.50 greater than the balance in July. How much greater was his account balance in August than July? Okay, so it says that his account balance in August, let me just write this August here, is $6.50 greater than July. Okay, so let's add $6.50. That makes it $16.50. How much greater is his balance in August than June? Well, here's June. All right, so what we want to do is we want to do $16.50 minus -2. Well, that becomes a positive. So that's really $16.50 plus 2, which is $18.50. So the answer here is D. Number 6. Use the Venn diagram to answer the question. Which of these sets of numbers would go in the whole number circle? Okay, so only whole numbers. Now, whole numbers are your counting numbers plus 0. Okay, counting numbers plus 0. Well, not negatives, not decimals, not negatives, not a square root. Here we are. Whole numbers and 0. So the answer here is J. Number 7. The table shows jumps along a number line beginning at 0. Which addition equation shows the result of the jumps? All right, so the first one we're going to do is we're going unit 1 and, oh, I don't know what that number is. 1 and 1/6. 1 and 1/6 units to the right. All right, so when we go to the right, we know that that's a positive. 1/3 units to the left, so that is a negative. And 5/6 units to the right. So again, that's a positive. So we start at 1 and 1/6 minus 1/3 plus 5/6. So that's what we're looking at there. All right, so let me just go ahead and figure out which one shows that. Okay, so that's between C and D, and now I do have to work it out. Okay, so let's do 1 and 1/6 minus 1/3. Common denominator is 6, so that's 2. I have to borrow 0, that's a 7/6, so I get 5/6. Now I'm going to add this 5/6, and I get 10/6. All right, so I'm going to divide this by 2, and I get 5/3. Hopefully they simplified it right. So 3 and 2, 5, 1, 3, 2. So I get 1 and 2/3. So the answer here is C. Number 8. Shauna's account balance was negative $18.75 on Monday. On Tuesday, the balance in her account was negative $6.35. What is the difference between the account balance on Tuesday and the account balance on Monday? All right, so I want to know the difference. So all I'm going to do is subtract. So we're going to subtract. Let's see here. All right, so she starts at negative $18.75 and she goes to negative $6.35. Right? So what's happening is that my number is getting greater, because remember, negative 6 is going to be greater than negative 18. So she's actually putting money in. So we just got to figure out how much money she's putting in. All right, so we're going to do negative $6.35 minus negative $18.75. Okay, so this becomes a positive. All right, signs are different, so let's subtract. All right, and it's positive because 1875 became positive. So the answer is H. Number 9. Mr. Lee drew this Venn diagram on the board. He asked his students to name a set in the diagram that includes the number negative 3 9/10. Which set could they name? Okay, so it's a negative, so We know that it can't be counting or whole. Now, it does have a decimal, and so I said earlier that decimals and fractions must go into rational. So the answer here is C. Oops, moving this too much. Okay, next. Number 10. I'm not really going to use the griddable part. All right, Jill had a ribbon 1 meter long. Jill and her sister each cut off 2/10 meter of the ribbon to use on greeting cards. Jill cut another 1/10 meter off of the ribbon to use on a poster. What is the length of the ribbon in meters that was left unused? So I'm looking for what's left, right? All right, so let's start with what she had, and she had, let's see, 1 meter. Now, Jill and her sister each cut off 2/10. So 2/10 to Jill, she's cutting that off, and 2/10 her sister. So for the total tenths, that is 4/10, right? So let's subtract 4/10. Get 6/10, right? 10 minus 4 is 6. Then Jill cuts another 1/10. Well, as a decimal, that's easy because it's just 1/10, right? So we're going to cut off another 1/10. And what's left? 5/10. So if you put 5/10 or 0.05, I don't know if I put 0.50 in the answer choice, but if you think that you got that right, I will definitely go take a look at that and see what the answer, what you put. And if it's something equivalent to 5/10, then I will definitely give you credit for that, okay? Moving on, number 11. Austin's paycheck showed a regular weekly salary of $385.50, a deduction of $16.35, a commission of $28.75, and $37.35 for overtime. Which equation correctly finds Austin's final pay? All right, so what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and just kind of work it out ourselves. So let's see, we would do 385, because that's his paycheck. A deduction, so that would be subtracting $16.35. I'm going to run out of room. A commission, so when you make a commission, it's because they're giving you extra money because you've sold something. Sorry, it's getting smaller because I'm running out of room. And then overtime. Well, if you work overtime, you're getting paid more money. Okay, so I only have this one subtraction here. All right, so let's see here which one. So A looks like it could be correct. And so could D, because remember, if I put negatives with positives, that's a negative. Okay, so what we need to do is we just need to work it out. Okay, so 30, I'm just going to do a running total. Oops. 385.50 minus 16.35. So I get no I don't. Okay, $369.15. Now we're going to add $28.75. I'm at $397.90, and then I have to add the overtime, which is $37.35. $435.25. Okay, so the answer here is A. Oh, I should have known the same over the negative. Okay, well, it's worked out. Number 12. Juan completed the table below. What mistake did Juan make? Okay, so let's look here. So we have negative 3/5. That's irrational because I can put in a fraction, but is it an integer? Well, from what I've told you earlier, you cannot have fractions or decimals in integers, so that's wrong. Okay, so that's the mistake right off the bat. 3/5 is not an integer. The answer is G. Everything else would be correct. Number 13. Andrea works at a shoe store and earns a commission of $1.75 each time she sells a pair of shoes. This pay slip shows Andrea's pay last week before and after her commission and $35 in overtime pay that was added. How many pairs of shoes did she sell? All right, so let's see. Overtime was $35. So what I want to do is I want to add the $234.50 plus the 35. What's remaining would then be just the commission itself. Okay. So $269.50. Now I'm going to subtract because that's going to tell me how much she earned in just commission. Can't read my writing. Is that an 8? Yep. All right, so she earned $12.25 in commission. Well, I want to know how many pairs of shoes she sold, and it's $1.75 every time that she sells a pair of shoes. So let's divide this. Move it twice straight up. All right, so let's see how many times. Let's try 7. I just went with A. All right, so 49, 50, 51, 52. And that's it. 12. So she sold 7 pairs of shoes. 14. The Venn diagram shows the relationship between sets A and B. Which of the following sets could sets A and B? Could be sets A and sets B. Okay, so let's look at F. Sets A are all positive integers. Okay, so that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, because 0 is not positive or negative, it's a neutral. Set B are all counting numbers. Well, counting numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, so those are going to be exactly the same. So what that's saying that it has something in common, but they're different. Well, they're all in common, so A and B would definitely need to be in the same circle, and it'd have to be the same size, because those are exactly the same. G. Set A, all integers less than 0. I said 0. All integers less than 1. So that would be like 0 and then -1, -2, -3. All whole numbers, so that would be 0, 1, 2, 3. So do they have something in common? Well, yeah, they do. They have this, oops, I didn't mean to erase it. They have the 0 in common. All right, so that would work. So the answer here is G. Okay, let's just look at H and J, and so we can figure out why those wouldn't work. Set A are all positive rational numbers and all whole numbers. Okay, so we're talking positive rational. That's a whole bunch of fractions as well. All positive rationals. That would be like 1, or we could even start like 1/2, 1, 1 and 1/2, 2. I mean, you even have like 1600s, and then whole numbers would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so would that work? No, it wouldn't. And then J, set A, all integers less than 0, so that's like -1, -2, -3. All counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, they have nothing in common, so J wouldn't work. And let's go to 15. All right, Megan's teacher wrote the expression -3/5 plus 1/10 times 15% on the board. Megan came to the board and simplified it correctly. What did she write? So let's just work this out. Well, -3/5, we should know that that's -6/10 plus 1/10 times 15% is 0.15. You just take it 2 times to the left. All right, negative 6/10 plus 1/10. Well, the signs are different. Subtract negative 5/10 times negative 15/100. So let's just work that out. Now the answer is going to be negative because a negative times a positive is a negative. All right, and then so how many numbers after the decimal? We have 3. Well, 1, 2, I got to add another 0. So it's a negative 75 thousandths. The answer is B. 16. A construction company dug a hole for a swimming pool. After the first day of digging, the bottom of the pool was at negative 3 8/10 feet relative to the ground. After the second day of digging, the depth of the pool was negative 8 1/2 feet. How many feet did they dig on the second day? All right, so so what's happening is, let's say that this is some ground here, right? And they've dug this hole. And this hole, they're at negative 3 8/10. Well, they continue to go down, and then they're at 8 1/2. And they want to know how many feet did they dig. Okay, so how much further did they go down? So I'm looking for the distance, right? Now remember, distance cannot be negative. If I'm looking for distance, you can't dig negative 3 feet. You can dig 3 feet, but you can't dig negative. All right, so all I really need to do here is just subtract. And I'm just going to take 8 1/2 and turn it to a decimal. So 8 5/10 minus 3 8/10. That's 7 15 7 4. So I get 4 7/10. So the answer here is G. All right, so that concludes the first part of your review.